A man became the slave of 5 alien women in order to live. Elias had always suspected he would die doing something stupid, but he had not expected it to involve a borrowed transport, an unpaid fuel bill, and a moon that looked like it had been designed by someone who actively hated life. The crash itself was brief, loud, and deeply unfair. When he crawled out of the wreckage coughing dust and regret, his helmet politely informed him he had 12 minutes of oxygen left and suggested several breathing exercises. Elias told it to shut up and started walking, which on this moon meant bouncing unpredictably like a confused rubber ball. The surface rearranged itself in small, unsettling ways. Hills sagged. Shadows slid sideways. Something beneath his boots made a noise like a throat being cleared by a planet. Elias tried very hard not to think about how little sense that made. He focused instead on putting one foot in front of the other and pretending that was a plan. When his oxygen dropped to 8 minutes, 5 figures appeared from nowhere in particular, which he felt was extremely rude of them. They looked human. Almost. Long ears swept back from their heads like sharp question marks, and their eyes caught the dim light strangely, reflecting stars that were not there. None of them spoke out loud. Instead, a voice appeared directly inside his skull, crisp and calm and entirely uninvited. "Do not faint." Elias frowned. "I wasn't going to faint." "Then perhaps do not scream." "I also wasn't going to," he screamed, because apparently his brain did not accept instructions delivered telepathically. The scream ended quickly when another voice arrived, amused. "He is malfunctioning already." A third voice sighed. "Of course he is. They always malfunction." One of them stepped forward. Elias held up his hands by instinct, even though he was pretty sure no police academy prepared you for long-eared mind-reading aliens. "Listen," he said. "I don't know who you are, but if you're thinking about eating me, I have excellent reasons why that would be a bad idea." "You are too thin," said one voice with mild disappointment. "We would gain nothing nutritionally." "That's comforting," Elias muttered. "We offer you a choice," said the eldest voice, heavy like a door closing. "Work for us, or become another story for the dust." Elias glanced at the moon, which looked thrilled about the dust idea. His oxygen ticked down again. "When you say work, what exactly are we talking about? Because I am terrible at heavy lifting, excellent at complaining, and emotionally unprepared for betrayal." They exchanged something between themselves that felt like a shared smile. "Serve our household," the eldest said. "Live. Refuse, and this world will finish what it has started." Elias weighed his options for approximately 3 seconds. "Great," he said. "Love it. Big fan of living." They did not clap, which he found disappointing. The structure they took him to looked grown rather than built, a massive black skeleton curling inward around glowing veins of light. Elias stumbled along behind them, helmet finally chirping its last warning before one of the sisters placed her hand on it, and it simply stopped needing oxygen. Elias made a mental note to be alarmed later. Inside, a creature roughly the size of a trash can floated by and glared at him. "You brought another one," it complained inside his head. "They never last." "I intend to," Elias said, out of spite. The sisters went about their strange routines, passing thoughts instead of words. Elias was handed unfamiliar tools and directed toward tasks that made no sense. He cleaned smooth surfaces that were already spotless. He carried glowing objects from one place to another, only for them to be moved back again minutes later. At one point he was asked to apologize to a wall. He did, because at this point his dignity was optional. Between tasks, they studied him, asked about water, about trees, about wind. Elias explained rain as best he could, and was rewarded with stunned silence and what felt very much like longing. The eldest finally approached him again. "You will stay with us." Elias swallowed. "As in permanently?" "As long as you breathe." He forced a smile. "Then I officially request my own room and the right to complain loudly where no one can hear me." "We will consider it," she said solemnly. And that, Elias decided, was how his life as a very confused servant on a homicidal moon began. Elias woke up inside the structure to the uncomfortable realization that he no longer knew what morning meant, and his body had decided to invent new kinds of stiffness just to stay creative. He rolled over, hit something solid, and apologized automatically before realizing it was a wall that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. "I'm sorry," he muttered anyway. It felt safer to maintain good relations with architecture on this moon. A voice entered his head without knocking. "You are horizontal longer than necessary." "So noted," Elias replied. "I am protesting gravity." "Gravity is already unstable," said another voice. "Your protest is redundant." He sat up with a groan and was immediately confronted by the youngest sister, staring at him from about 5 inches away. He yelped. She yelped louder, apparently startled by his yelp, and they stood there staring at each other in mutual embarrassment. "You make strange alarm noises," she said. "You invaded my personal bubble," Elias replied. "Back home, that's illegal in at least 3 emotional states." She tilted her head. "What is a bubble?" "Never mind," Elias sighed. "Why are you here?" "You are scheduled for instruction." "Instruction in what?" "Everything." Elias followed her into a wide chamber where the other sisters waited, sitting in a perfect half-circle like he was about to be judged by a very quiet, very psychic court. The third sister beamed at him mentally with the enthusiasm of someone who had never been disappointed by reality. "Today," she announced, "you learn us." "I'm flattered," Elias said, "but I barely understand me." The eldest's voice settled over the room. "You will show us how humans think." "Oh, good," Elias muttered. "We're doomed already." They began simply. They asked how decisions were made without shared thoughts. Elias tried to explain privacy, personal opinions, and the noble tradition of pretending to listen while mentally replaying embarrassing memories. They reacted with fascination and mild horror. "You exist alone inside yourselves," the second sister observed. "How inefficient." "Tell me about it," Elias said. "If we shared thoughts, social media would be a war crime." They tested him. One sister concentrated hard, and suddenly he was standing in a memory not his own, surrounded by stars arranged like streets, buildings glowing with impossible colors, voices singing across space. Elias staggered and nearly cried out. "Stop," he gasped. They pulled back instantly. "Are you damaged?" "I think so," Elias said weakly, "but in a normal way." He laughed too loudly, and the third sister tilted her head in delight. "That was humor, yes?" "Yes," Elias said. "Also a coping mechanism." They tried it. One after another they attempted humor. It was bad. "I will now engage in funny," the fourth sister declared. "Elias, you resemble a soft insect." "Wow," Elias deadpanned. "Comedy gold." They did not notice. Later, they gave him food. It wriggled slightly. Elias stared at it. "Is it supposed to be doing that?" "It is fresh," the youngest said proudly. "Fantastic," Elias muttered, poking it cautiously before eating it anyway. Survival had lowered his standards. Time passed strangely. Tasks blurred into conversations, conversations into strange lessons. Elias learned the sisters were named, though the meanings translated badly. Echo of stars, stone thought, laughter against endings, keeper of errors, and the youngest, curious of everything, which Elias shortened to curious. Curious followed him everywhere. "Why are your ears small?" "They're efficient," Elias said. "Do they grow when you think hard?" "No." "Unfortunate. One cycle, maybe a day, maybe not." The eldest called Elias aside. "Your presence alters the structure. Systems respond to you." "Great," Elias said. "I always wanted to be a walking software update." "You are connecting to the core." "That sounds like something that ends with explosions," Elias said. "Perhaps," she replied. He laughed nervously. "Fantastic." That night, whenever night pretended to exist here, Elias lay awake listening to the moon hum through the walls. He missed Earth in small, stupid ways. Bad coffee, loud cities, silent skies. He also knew, deeply and unwillingly, that something inside this place was opening because of him, and he had absolutely no idea what that meant, which, frankly, was becoming a theme. Elias learned very quickly that when alien women, who can read your thoughts, say the words, "Follow the lights," it is not a comforting instruction. The lights in question were drifting shapes that slid along the walls and ceiling like lazy comets, and every single one of them felt personally offended by his presence. Curious trotted beside him, mentally humming in a tone that suggested she was 3 seconds away from asking something deeply inappropriate. "Are humans allergic to glowing things?" "Yes," Elias answered. "Violently. We explode." She paused. "Truly?" "No," he sighed. "But thank you for your concern." "You lie a lot," she observed cheerfully. "Professionally." They led him downward into parts of the structure that pulsed harder, faster, like something very old trying to remember its name. The eldest waited near a circular opening in the floor that glowed with a light that made Elias's teeth feel strange. "This is the core," she said. Elias leaned away from it instinctively. "I don't like it when places are called the core. That's usually where the end-of-the-world buttons live." "This is not a button," Stone Thought corrected. "It is a heart." "That's worse." They asked him to place his hands on a smooth surface that rose from the ground like it had been embarrassed about being part of the floor. Elias stood there, staring at it. "So just to be clear," he said, "this will not kill me." "We are uncertain," Keeper of Errors admitted. "Fantastic." Elias deadpanned and placed his hands down anyway. The world immediately turned into noise. Not sound, thought. Memory. Voices. Stars burning like ideas behind his eyes. He saw cities being born and burned. He felt years press into seconds, and seconds stretch into eternity. He knew names of things humans could never pronounce, and places no one would ever go. And beneath it all, exhaustion. So much exhaustion. A species that had run too far and too long, and was out of tomorrow. He pulled back with a strangled sound, and collapsed to his knees. They rushed to him instantly, wrapping him in wordless concern and mental noise until he slapped the floor. "Stop, please. One brain at a time." Silence, sharp and immediate. The eldest knelt in front of him. "You feel it now." "Yeah," Elias breathed. "Your planet is tired. And annoyed. And it really does not like gravity." She accepted this gravely. "You are binding to the system." "Great," Elias muttered. "I didn't even get dinner first." Time got strange after that. Machines responded to him. Doors slid open when he frowned at them too hard. Lights brightened when he laughed. At one point, Elias accidentally turned off something important by sneezing, and the sisters stared at him with combined panic until he sneezed again and turned it back on. He began to feel the moon, not consciously, but like a background ache, like standing near someone who was quietly crying in the next room. One cycle again, who knew? Elias snapped during a task and shouted at the wall for being too warm. The wall apologized. Elias stared at it. "Don't." "I am sorry," the wall insisted. "You're a wall," Elias said. "You shouldn't have guilt." The wall dimmed sadly. Elias sighed and sat down next to it. "It's okay. I'm just tired." The wall warmed slightly. Later, he confronted the eldest. "You didn't tell me the truth," he said. She met his eyes. "We did. We merely delayed certain horrors." "What's happening to me?" Elias demanded. "You are becoming part of our world." "Like legally," Elias clarified. "Or physically?" "Both." He laughed weakly. "I can't even commit to a gym membership, and now I'm fusing with the moon." "We could release you," she said quietly. Elias looked at her sharply. "But the system will fail." He was silent a long moment. "So I'm a life support subscription," he said. "Yes." He leaned back and stared at a ceiling filled with impossible stars. "Figures. I finally make friends, and now I'm also a battery." "You are more than that," Curious insisted. "Tell that to my aching soul," Elias muttered. Yet that night, whenever night pretended again, he found himself teaching the third sister jokes. Actual jokes. Some even worked. "Why did the human cross the vacuum?" she asked eagerly. "Why?" Elias groaned. "Because it was not thinking." Elias stared at her. "I taught you wrong," he whispered. But she laughed then, genuinely out loud. A sound like broken starlight. Something deep beneath the structure responded. The moon shifted. And somewhere inside Elias, something ancient took one careful breath. Elias discovered the first truly alarming side effect on what he privately labeled Day Who Even Knows. He woke up knowing where every glowing pipe in the structure led, which would have been fine if he had ever learned that information in the first place. He sat up. No. Nope. Absolutely not. You are mapping, Stonethought said gently. I do not map before breakfast, Elias replied. It's in my religion. Curious slid into his thoughts with the delicacy of a thrown chair. You know where the lost chamber is now. I know where all the chambers are, Elias said weakly. There's one shaped like a sad triangle that hums when it's lonely. The triangle is lonely, Keeper of Errors admitted. Elias buried his face in his hands. I'm becoming emotionally responsible for hallways. They did not deny it. The systems responded faster now. Too fast. He thought about warmth, and the room warmed. He thought about silence, and everything went painfully still, like the moon itself was holding its breath. He spent most of the cycle terrified that an accidental thought would melt something important, including himself. To cope, he instituted rules. Rule 1. No emotional spiraling before the first strange meal. Rule 2. No thinking about explosions. Rule 3. If something starts glowing faster, stop thinking entirely. The third sister found him sitting completely still with his eyes shut. Are you broken? She asked brightly. I'm practicing not destroying your civilization, Elias said through clenched teeth. Ah, she nodded. Important skill. He attempted humor. Maybe later you can teach me how to not emotionally implode entire ecosystems. We will create a lesson, she promised. It was at that moment the alarms began. Not sound, thought. Panic wearing 1,000 voices. The moon shuddered inward like something flinching. Stonethought seized him mentally. It is the outer seal. It is failing. Of course it is, Elias said. Nothing ever fails quietly. They rushed him toward the core, light streaking ahead like the building itself was trying to flee. Elias felt pressure inside his head, sharp as the threat of migraines from several galaxies away. Okay, he panted. New rule. Nothing massive collapses today. The core answered by glowing angrily. The eldest stood at the heart with her hands already placed, eyes burning with focus. Elias joined her, pulse racing. You could have warned me I'd feel like a haunted power socket, he muttered. We feared you would refuse, she said. I still might, Elias said. I just refuse slowly. Energy surged. The structure buckled. Elias screamed, not from pain, but from the sheer, overwhelming vastness of it. Too much history. Too much loss. A species screaming quietly into eternity. Hey, he yelled inside the storm. You are not allowed to die before explaining yourselves. Something inside the moon listened. He spoke. To it. To the core. To the echoing consciousness of a dying world. You don't get to quit, he said. Not after all this work. You don't get to be ancient and dramatic and just switch off. It pulsed harder. Also, he added, you still owe me a room. The moon hesitated. Truly hesitated. Like something embarrassed. The energy stabilized. Slowly. Achingly. When it was over, Elias collapsed onto the floor. Breathless, but alive. The youngest appeared instantly. You yelled at our world. Yep. Elias wheezed. We're in a relationship now. They surrounded him, silent and stunned. You spoke to the planet, Echo of Stars whispered. I talked to furniture too, Elias said. It runs in the family. She took his hand. For the first time, physically. Thank you. He flinched at the unfamiliar contact, then relaxed. Just promise me something, he said. What? If I start glowing permanently, unplug me. They almost laughed. After that, things were quieter. The moon did not ache as loudly. The walls did not hum in grief nearly as much. Elias felt the systems reorganize around him, slowly learning his rhythms the way a living thing learned a heartbeat. Then one cycle. He woke up not knowing every hallway. He burst into the central chamber grinning. I forgot where the sad triangle is. Joy real bright, rippling through the sisters. You are becoming separate again, Keeper of Errors breathed. Elias sank into a seat, exhausted and relieved. I love you all, he declared. But I draw the line at being a psychic GPS. The moon hummed softly, and for the first time since he arrived, it did not sound like crying. Elias realized the end was coming not because of alarms or visions, but because the moon finally felt quiet. Not empty, not broken, just quiet, like a machine that had finished a long, exhausting conversation and now wanted tea. He sat in the central chamber with the sisters arrayed around him in a familiar half-circle, which now felt less like judgment and more like family attempting an intervention. "It's too calm," Elias said. "Something big always happens after things get suspiciously calm. That's just good narrative sense." This time, the eldest actually smiled. "The system is complete," she said. "It no longer requires you to remain." Elias blinked. "I'm going to need you to repeat that slower, possibly with diagrams." "You are no longer bound," Stone Thought said. "The core has rebuilt itself. The moon will endure. And me. We will endure without you," Curious said quickly, eyes too bright. Elias laughed weakly. "Careful. I'm emotionally fragile and easily guilt." The eldest stepped closer and thought. "We gave you a choice once. We will give it again. You may leave, or you may stay." It hit harder than any energy surge ever had. "Wow," Elias whispered. "You mean I survived slavery, accidental symbiosis, and a near career as a planetary organ, just to end up with the hardest decision of my life?" They waited in silence that felt kind. He thought of Earth. Loud skies. Coffee that tasted bad but felt like home. People who never read his thoughts, which suddenly felt precious. He also thought of this place. Of walls that apologized. Of jokes that landed badly but joyfully. Of long-eared aliens who had never meant to imprison him, only to not be alone. "I think," Elias said slowly, "that once upon a time I thought survival was just not dying." They listened. "But it turns out survival is having something you'd actually miss." He stood. "I'm going home," he said. "Not because I want to leave you, but because I want to come back on purpose." The youngest gasped mentally like she had been stabbed by cuteness. "You promise?" "I swear on every bad decision I've ever made," Elias said. "And that's a legally binding contract." They laughed out loud, all of them, unpracticed and beautiful and messy. The core opened one last time. A vessel waited, grown for him, shaped by a moon that finally trusted itself. As he boarded, he turned back. "You five," he said, voice thick. "Rule kindly. Don't start any weird cult stuff. And please, no more kidnapping." The eldest inclined her head. "Then go as free as you arrived not." "Comforting," Elias murmured. The ship lifted. The moon did not ache. As stars unfolded, Elias felt lighter. Not empty. Light. Months passed. Earth was noisy, unimproved, and somehow wonderful. Elias told no one the whole truth. They would never believe him anyway. Vacation gone wrong was easier. He bought bad coffee and smiled at it like an old friend. He waited. And one day, the sky answered. Not with fire. Not with invasion. With a door. They arrived quietly. 5 sisters stepping into sunlight, like it was a strange new religion. The youngest stared at the sky. "This place is too loud." Elias grinned. "Welcome to Earth." Stone Thought squinted at a pigeon. "Is it hostile?" "Yes," Elias said. "Extremely." They laughed. They walked. They learned. They failed at chairs. Elias watched it all with a sense of impossible rightness. He was no longer a slave. No longer a battery. No longer alone. One night, sitting beneath a sky that was not dying, Elias spoke quietly. "I used to think being owned was the worst thing that could happen to me." The eldest looked at him. "Turns out," he said, "being wanted for who you are kind of ruins your taste for chains." She took his hand. "Then let this world be ours by choice." And for the first time in his entire life, Elias finally chose something back. The end.